Did the US Israeli attack on Iran challenge the balance of global power more than American wars in Iraq or Afghanistan? What is the biggest lesson from the conflict? Was it about the battle or about the end of an era? According to one leading American political scientist, the world may have just crossed a historic turning point. And if he's right, the consequences wouldn't stop in the Middle East. They will reshape conflicts from Ukraine to East Asia and even the future of American power itself. Let's unpack why. For more than 3 decades, one belief dominated American foreign policy that overwhelming military superiority could solve almost all strategic problems. That belief traces back to the 1991 Gulf War. The United States defeated Saddam Hussein's forces with astonishing speed and minimal casualties compared to expectations. It wasn't just a victory, it created an image of America as an almost unbeatable military power. For decades afterwards, that confidence shaped interventions across the world. But what if that assumption no longer holds? Here, here is where the story gets interesting. The latest Iran conflict may not simply be another West Asia war. Some analysts argue it could become the historic backend to the era that began in 1991. Why? Because technology has fundamentally changed warfare. For years, military power depended on expensive fighter jets, American aircraft carriers, missiles worth millions of dollars. Now, cheap drones costing a tiny fraction of those weapons are transforming battles. We have already seen it. Ukraine has relied heavily on drones against Russia. The Houthis have challenged shipping in the Red Sea. Iran has demonstrated new capabilities. According to Professor Robert Pape of the University of Chicago, this isn't just technological evolution. It's what he calls a second precession revolution. And it changes the rules suddenly. Everyone, even powerful militaries, face challenges that weren't designed to handle. But drones aren't just changing battlefields, they may be changing geopolitics itself. Here is why. For decades, America projected military power almost anywhere on Earth: aircraft carriers, forward bases, long range bombers. But if relatively inexpensive drones can threaten these assets, protecting force becomes much more difficult. That doesn't mean the United States becomes suddenly weak. Far from it. America remains one of the world's strongest military powers. The difference is that power may be increasingly constrained. Instead of operating freely across multiple regions, future leaders may have to choose much more carefully where they can intervene. The same technological shift is playing out in Eastern Europe. Many expected Russia's larger population and military resources to eventually overwhelm Ukraine. Instead, drones have become one of Ukraine's most effective tools. Rather than relying only on conventional battles that have increasingly targeted logistical and supply lines, military strategists have long argued that disrupting an opponent's ability to sustain its forces can sometimes matter more than simply destroying equipment. The Ukraine war has become one of the clearest demonstrations of that idea. But perhaps the biggest surprise isn't Europe, it's what these developments could mean for West Asia. One argument gaining attention is that recent events may have shifted regional influence. Supporters of this view believe Iran has emerged with greater strategic leverage than before. Others disagree and point to the severe costs Iran has also suffered. What is clear is that the region remains highly volatile. Control over vital maritime routes like the Strait of Hormuz continues to remain enormous. It gives enormous geopolitical importance to developments there. Any disruption affects global energy markets, not just West Asia, and that means conflicts in the region rarely stay regional. Another consequence is often overlooked. It isn't about bombs, it isn't about missiles, it's about economics. Wars today do not always end with clear victories. Instead, many become long term management problems. Energy prices, supply chain, shipping routes, insurance costs, trade, all these become part of battlefield. Even after shooting slows down, the economic consequences continue. And today, in today's interconnected world, everyone pays, whether they live in New York, Nairobi, New Delhi, Sao Paulo. So, where does this leave the United States? Perhaps in a very different position than many imagined. A more constrained superpower, Professor Pape argues America may increasingly become what he calls a constrained great power, not because it lacks military strength, but modern technology makes projecting that strength far more complicated. Future conflicts may become harder to control, more expensive, and less predictable. Military dominance alone may no longer guarantee political success. The larger lesson isn't about America or Iran or Ukraine. It's about how rapidly technology is changing warfare. For centuries, military power largely belonged to states with the biggest armies and the largest budgets. Now, innovation is reshaping that equation. Cheap drones, artificial intelligence, precision weapons, these tools are lowering barriers that once separated military superpowers from much smaller actors. That doesn't eliminate the importance of traditional military strength, but it does make conflicts increasingly complex. History rarely announces when one era ends and another begins. Only years later do we recognize the turning points. Some historians may eventually look back on the recent Iran conflict as one of those moments. Others may disagree. Only time will tell, but one thing seems increasingly difficult to ignore. Modern wars are becoming less about unconditional victory and more about managing risks and adapting new technologies and navigating a far more complicated world. And that may be biggest strategic shift of all. If you found this analysis useful, please like this video, subscribe for more global affairs and geopolitical analysis, and let me know in the comments, has a drone warfare permanently changed the balance of power, or we are still in early stages of military transformation? Thank you so much.